this. Hi, Mandy.
Mandy.
Hi,
Mandy.
Missing you, Mandy, already.
Okay, right. So yeah, weirdly, I thought I'd talk about trays and platters. I don't know why. I think it occurred to me, and I just thought this was slightly underexplored area. So this is by Louisa Taylor, and she is head of ceramics at the University of Brighton, and she's very nice, and she makes throne work. Interestingly, for Maria, maybe this collection, this was inspired by a residency she did at the V&A, where she looked at, you know how they have some very floral, elaborate kind of ceramics at the V&A. Well, she took one very floral, I haven't got a picture of the piece, but a very floral piece, but she just took the colours from it and then almost deconstructed it. So each one of these is one of the colours that was on the pot. So it's like a collection of colour samples, I guess, in a way. I thought
that is so hard to do, to get those colours.
Yeah, she's
so much work.
She's a real master of color mixing, and she's written a couple of the books that I've shown you. But yeah, she uses mixes of oxides and stains, but she also then so she might make up a couple of different glaze colors and then mix those two together and get a third shade, and then mix that with another one and get another shade. And so she does some very exciting things. But what I was drawn to with this was the gold
Yes,
gold
yeah,
tray that they're sitting on. So it's a sort of tray for pots. And then I thought I'd show you this. Apologies for it all being screen grabs from Instagram on some of these things, but this is another tray. Have any of you come across Jill Shaddock?
no.
So she does, you know, we were talking about slip casting last week and pouring porcelain into a mold. So she pours multiple layers, a bit like Sasha Wardell. So she'll pour in. So
Can you enlarge it? Oh my word! Oh, I've got some of her stuff.
Have you?
I've got 3 of her little things, tiny little. It's very, very multi-layered.
Yeah.
I have got her. I recognise the colour palette. I've got no, not loads of her stuff. I've got one little tiny piece.
Okay.
With a lid, and the lid has got that those thin layers there. The lid, little bubble on the top of the lid has got that.
Okay. Well, yeah, and it's incredibly precise work. Looking at the this bowl here,
yeah,
poured in a dark coloured porcelain, and then poured out the excess, and then poured in a white layer, and then poured it out, and then poured in a kind of teal peacock. Not quite sure what that blue is. And you know, that's how she builds up these layers. So each of these have got kind of different layers that you only see on the edge, which I think is fascinating. And the tray that they're sitting on will have been made in a similar way, but I guess building it up laterally.
So she would just, she has the mold, and then I'm not going to ever do this. I'm just quite intrigued. And then she just pours it in a very small amount, and then just pours another layer on.
No, so what she does is she'll pour in. So with this grey one here, grey and blue. So she'll pour in the grey slip, fill up the mold, and then leave it for say 2 minutes.
Oh, so yeah, that's what Sasha. Yeah, that's what. Yeah.
Pour out the excess, let it dry, then, or you know, go cheese hard, and then pour in the next lot, fill it up, leave it for a couple of minutes, pour it out, do the same. So so it's kind of just building up the layers by doing each one separately. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
How would you do the tray though?
Well, yeah, the tray was the
not sure.
I wanted to do it in 2 parts because it looks like maybe she has a mould for the base and then she has a donut mould for the that's what I was just wondering, because it's got a sloping side to accentuate the stripes, which is cool.
Yeah.
And it narrows up, because otherwise you wouldn't see the stripes if it was straight-sided.
Mm.
Although it's straight-sided on the outside, which is cool, because you can see it from the outside. It's pretty neat, isn't it, the way she's done that?
Her stuff is so neat.
Very, very precise, isn't it? That's
really good. Yeah.
It's a really good observation, Claire, actually, about the sloping sides, because it does mean you can see the stripes a lot more easily, doesn't it?
Yeah, because that's the bit I couldn't understand how she did, because that I can understand the bowls, but this is really very intricate.
I mean, I think
2 parts. It's got to be two parts, hasn't it?
Yeah, I think you're right. Probably the base is probably separate, and then the rim added. And I mean, the way I'm thinking is that probably it is a ring shaped mold, and it might be that she just pours it in each layer at a time. I don't know. It's interesting, isn't it? Because I don't do slip casting. I couldn't
looking at the rings on the inside to the rings on the outside. The last layer is white, the very last layer, and it's thicker. Would it be that you would just do it like a sandwich, layer on layer on layer on layer, and then once it's got to a soft but sort of leather hard stage, would you then put it back on the wheel and carve it out?
Yeah, it's possible.
Yeah, you would get that angle, that very sharp angle. It's keeping the bottom clean, and just because of the thickness of that base,
it is allowed. Yeah, she's done it as a whole thing. Although, I think it would be better. It would be better done if it was a donut shaped mold. Because then there'd be a lot of waste in the middle. It would take a lot of time to dry. But if it was, if the profile of it was U-shaped all the way around, like you've cut a donut in half and hollowed it out, and then pour in the slips.
She must have to pour in exact amounts to get a thin layer, and then just leave it to dry. So she'll pour in a fatter layer, a bit more of the white, and then go for a really small amount of the grey, then go for another small amount of the white, and then build it up and let it dry without tipping it out, because if she tipped it out of the mould, it would all blur up the side. So she'd have to let it set in the mould and then add another layer and let it set, wouldn't she?
It's fascinating, isn't it? It just makes you wonder, and it makes you want to kind of get closer and go, oh, what's she done?
Yeah.
And I also like the it's not just the different colours as well, the way that some of it's glazed and some of it isn't, and and it all just works together as this ensemble. And the tray that it sits in brings it all together. If you just bought all these individual bowls, they wouldn't have the impact that you have with the tray that it gives you. And you would then buy this as a set, and suddenly it's a piece on its own, rather than 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 9 bowls, just the bowls on their own. It doesn't quite work. So, well, I mean, it just is a different thing, isn't it? So I think that's what intrigues me about this, is the way that it brings it all together.
because her other stuff, she often shows, like Claire said, you know, about that lovely bit of oak. She normally shows like three bowls on a lovely thin bit of oak, and it is like a set. It's like you buy I didn't do that, I just did the smallest thing I could, but it's that display thing. It's like, here it is, because I haven't seen the stuff I saw before of hers wasn't glazed, none of it was, so this must be, it's quite a few years ago since I saw her stuff. Yeah, it's interesting.
She very rarely posts on Instagram, so I don't know whether
grabbed it.
but yeah, it's you're right, she does make these pieces where there's a piece of oak and then 3 bowls.
Yeah.
And so that piece of wood then acts as a tray. It acts as a, so this tray here is acting as a plinth, I guess, in a way.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Yes. Oh, I like that idea.
Yeah. So that's also making me think of Julian Stair, who makes plinths for his pieces. I'll see if I can come up with a picture of his work.
Does he do it out of ceramics, or does he do it out of wood as well?
He actually makes his plinths out of ceramic, but they're incredibly large, sort of boxy forms that he then sits.
Oh, I must have a look. Yeah.
Cups on. I'll see if you hold on a sec, I'll see if I can find Julian's there.
I did one. Don't laugh at my attempt. I think you've all seen it anyway. I did a tray. Can you see me? I can't see.
Yeah.
I made a tray. Can you see me now? Don't know what you can see. I was fiddling around with trays and stuff because I thought of, oh God, nothing like hers. I'm not there. This is my first one.
Yeah.
Obviously quite a lot in there. I just shoved a few things in. They're not, I haven't chosen enough, you know.
Oh, that's great.
I was going to try and make some more, and I don't know, I just did it out of some Vulcan black I had in the thing, but it kind of changes it, doesn't it? The way it talks to each other.
Yeah.
So I was going to try and make some smaller ones for some of the different vases and stuff, and then you can move things around, and I quite like that idea. Anyway,
yeah.
I'm quite intrigued that you've chosen that as a subject.
That's really interesting. I think that really does make a difference, doesn't it? And they stop being individual pots and then they become a collection. And they suddenly have a relationship with each other, and they're contained. That containment is really interesting, isn't it?
Yes, and why that containment? Yes, you're right. That is. I'm going to write that down too. Yeah, why you feel the need to contain it, and also why people, when they saw it, and that was quite interesting selling stuff, because that was the first proper sale I've had apart from our final show. People treated it differently. The tray, they went towards the tray because they didn't know, I don't think they knew why they liked it. They liked the order, I think. I don't know. Jenny.
It's really interesting, isn't it? I mean, I wonder if like somehow the pots on their own, they're too free, like they could run away. You know, like you'd have to find somewhere to put it, whereas the tray it's got a kind of comfort to it, kind of holding them. Sorry,
that, and also display. Go on.
I said it contains it.
It
contains the pieces. And gives it kind of a continuity.
It does. It and actually, like Maria was talking about earlier, it gives it a story somehow. You've almost got, because they've got a reason to be together. Pieces then suddenly have this relationship with each other and become a family instead of just individuals. So they get connections, they get stories, they get something more interesting than just on their own. Ooh, I wasn't going to talk about that.
Did you find people were buying them singly or in groups, Marie? Because that's another interesting thing. So I
found the majority of people, and I think that's why I sold so much, is that people picked up one, wanted one, and then they kind of looked back at the tray, and I displayed them in groupings, and I think quite a lot of people ended up buying 3.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Little collections, so you can make little trays for the 3s and get more. So more.
I think some people don't see it. Yeah, I think that people like seeing them as collections. I think by themselves, I think they can look a bit. But yeah. So yeah, quite a few people did buy collections. It was quite funny.
Especially if you make small things, they can get a bit lost.
Yeah.
In but
yeah.
This is what, like Yuta Sagara, the guy who makes these really titchy pots that we were talking about a couple of weeks ago. If he made something that contained those, then I would find it more interesting and more compelling, because I wouldn't have to put them together myself. They would come as a package, and I think that would give them more impact. But I
was thinking of making some trays like not a plinth, but long. I was going in my head. I was going to make some longer ones, not maybe as a square, but maybe. Do you think it might look a bit funny, slightly curved at the end to match the bottom of my vases?
No, I think it's a great idea.
Yeah. I think I'd quite like to make some, because I think people do like to have, and also that there's a reason for it as well, just to catch the water, for it doesn't, if you have got flowers and stuff. But I think then it looks like it's, what's the word? It's purposeful. It's being done on purpose. Yeah, that's it.
You could even make an oblong tray and do some of those hand-built square pots in your coloured.
Yes, and I could do some sprigs, Claire. What do you think?
No, I just thought it'd be quite cool if you did some. If you wanted to go, you could do some curved ones and some angular ones on a
yes,
in the same clay, but
I might do some more of those squished ones, because lots of people, I had Elaine 3 of my squished ones that I had for my final show, not for sale because they were my last ones, and loads of people asked about them, the altered ones, that I threw then altered, and lots of people, I didn't think I don't know, because I kind of moved on a bit, so I thought I might make some more of those and maybe do that. I don't know, we'll see. I've got, I like this. Oh, I like the plinth here.
Do you like it £9,900 worth? So this is Julian Stair, and the plinth that it's on is ceramic, so that's been built, and it's
hard to make it like that without it moving.
I know
that precision is really hard.
Yeah,
I'm very impressed.
I spent a day with this guy and helping him in his workshop as a tryout to become his assistant, which I failed so abysmally. It's become a great story, which I'll tell you if I have I not told you the Julian story?
No.
Another time. But this is actually a small one. This is only 90 centimeters long. I mean,
that's quite big.
That's huge. And this is a small one, and he was making ones that were like, 1.5 2 meters long. Incredible precision, but what it is it brings these disparate pieces together. It suddenly makes them into a group.
By themselves, they're not that interesting. I mean, they're nice, but they're not that interesting, are they?
I was just wondering if I go up in the roof and get some of my old pots and make a massive plinth and just put them in a row.
You'd be in there, Claire.
No, they're sort of like you say, they're not amazing. Well, they probably are amazing on their own, but I'm not. Yeah,
they're very plain and simple, but it's in the bringing them together and displaying them in that way that makes them special. It's kind of raising them up. It's like with anything. If you had a bag of rubbish, you put it on a plinth in an art gallery, it becomes art. And if you raise something up and make it special, it transforms it. It's not necessarily everyone's going to like it.
I also have another question, Elaine, about Julian Stair.
Yeah.
Those 2 that you just showed there in the last slide.
Yeah.
How come when you've got a smaller plinth and 2 pots, it suddenly doubles in price.
Yeah, I thought that as well.
It's gone from 900 for a whole bunch of pots and a massive plinth.
No, it was 9,900.
Even so, if you take the equation of work out, there was 11 pots on that 9,900 piece. So
Yeah,
that works out at about, you know, £100 a pot. No, £99 a pot. That's excluding the plinth. Plinth comes free. And then you got 1,800 for 2 pots and a plinth. You're shortchanged.
Yeah.
Depends how much money you've got in your pocket, doesn't it, really?
Here we go, Molly.
If I had £9,900 in my pocket, I'm sorry, Julian, I'm not knocking on your door.
Here you go.
Well, yeah. I mean, his work is. I think it has such a simplicity that it's deceptive, because I think it is really beautiful. And the way that he puts things together, it's a bit like you know, my least favorite, Edmund de Waal. You know, it's kind of like how you place things and how you organize them makes it, in a way. And the colors, you know, he's developed these colors, you know, and I stole the black from him.
It's nice.
I stole the recipe. No, he did
He
did freely
recreate it.
He did freely give it. But yeah. Oh, why have I moved on to a different page? Anyway, so yeah, so it's the. Look, there is. This is that surely can't be another plinth. That could be
polishing a plinth. It looks like,
because some
but
of
it looks like granite. It looks so granite-like. Just looks like stone.
So he's I think I've mentioned him to you before, because he makes these enormous coffins as well.
oh, is it him?
That's him.
I like those blocks with the people inside are pretty. You know, the blocks with the people. Yeah.
I don't like that. I don't like the thought of it.
What I'm saying when I say like it, they're different, aren't they? I haven't seen anything like it. Not that I want one.
Yeah. So interesting, but we're here to talk about his plinths. But yeah, I didn't think of those. I was thinking trays. But yeah, it is interesting the way, you know, you wouldn't unless you were a teapot fanatic, you wouldn't normally buy 3 teapots in one go. But this then makes them into a display of a set of objects, and they stop being teapots and become something else. They become part of a collection.
Can I ask if he started off with large installation work and went into, which came first?
He started off smaller. Started off with the small cups and saucers, and was more of a kind of practical thing. And then they became grouped. Yeah, but the coffin thing came from a very different direction.
Okay. I didn't know if the coffins were the starting point or
no,
or the end point.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, there's a bit of a sad story about the coffins, but yeah, but they came from a different. I don't know what we're doing. We're on somebody else's website here, but yeah, sort of started more with this kind of work. But yeah, interesting character, and interesting, like yeah, I went to see this work. These are enormous. I didn't see them in this space, but so he then played with scale and made these pots that for some reason are not loading, but are like human height. So you've got no sense of scale from this picture here, but hopefully there'll be a picture with some people in. These are maybe like 5 foot tall. That one isn't. That one is.
So these installation pieces, is he hand thrown or hand built?
Well, they might have been thrown, because he does throw enormous pieces. These are terrible pictures because you need a sense of scale.
They're enormous.
Yeah,
to even fire something like that.
So he makes these huge things in a brick factory, in an Ibstock brick factory, and fires them in their brick kilns. Oh, it's going to show a video, but yeah, so absolutely.
I think some of his stuff was down in Norwich when we went to Norwich to see Magdalena Dondo's stuff. He had some pieces. They were quite enormous.
Yeah.
They were like more like this and quite unfinished on the edges, actually more like those ones in the middle that you've had there, the colour, the reddish one and the...
Yeah, he deliberately leaves a kind of a sort of burr on the sides of things when he throws them. I don't know whether these are going to be good pictures or not.
Is that where he joins? I think where the joins were, he's not tried to hide, but yes, that's it.
It's not loading very well, this website. Yeah, you can't really see from these, it's too small. Yeah,
I like his choice of colours. As well.
You see,
the more I see, the more I like, to be fair, on so those smaller pieces.
Yeah, I think they initially it's sort of like they look too simple, but actually when you investigate them, it's deceptive. There's more to it. But these ones, he did a demo at the uni when I was doing my course, and he uses quite a throwing rib that has quite a rough edge to it, so it leaves these little burrs. So he'll deliberately sort of leave those in, so it's not necessarily where they're joined, but that's not a very good. This is where they're joined, because these are made in sections because they're so mahoosive. But I'll see if I can find another picture of it. It would be.
Makes me want to go and look at his work a lot more, I must admit.
Yeah,
I like that sort of showing where you've made a rib mark on a thrown piece and gone, that's intentional. I'm not going to have it perfect. And I quite like that imperfection.
Yeah. So I'm just sort of flitting around different websites at the moment, but so annoying. Okay, never mind. But you can see from roughly from these pictures that he leaves these bits. Anyway, yeah. So Julian Stair. Oh look, there's a sort of more close-up picture of one of the sort of bits.
Yes, yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Anyway, we'll just close those. Right, I'll just go back to my, no, not Safari, photos. So yeah, so kind of going back to trays. Let me, oh, my computer's having a paddy. What's the matter with you? I've got that spinning beach ball of doom.
Okay. The wheel of doom.
Sorry about this. come back to you in a second. Where was I? Right, let's see if it works now. Okay, so we've kind of looked at trays as kind of containing things, but trays and platters can also just be there to contain food. And then you need to think about the design not interfering too much with the food. You know, is it going to be a thing that you just display in its own right, or are you going to use it? And if you're going to use it, I think it needs to think about or have a relationship with the food that you're going to display on it. So I really like these. This is Nigel Lambert, and I quite just like the simplicity of the use of slip. It's just very kind of, it's got quite earthy tones, and quite just free, easy movements of design, just very simple. So they are beautiful in their own right, but they're also not going to clash with the, you know, whatever you might use them for. And these are great. These are Sylvia, so my studio neighbour. So this is what's really lovely about her trays and platters is they've just got the simplicity, but the bold colours, but they're not going to overpower whatever you could imagine your cheese or your sardines on them, and they're not going to overpower whatever's there.
I love the use of the leather as well.
Yeah, it's really nice. It adds a real extra dimension to it, doesn't it? And she's now using a leatherette that's actually made from bamboo, I think, or coconut.
Oh, okay.
So these were animal leather, and now they look and feel like leather, but a plant based, which is really great.
What's their surname, Elaine? Sylvia?
It's Kamodiova. So
oh no.
Normally, so she's my studio neighbour. She's just on the other side of the hall. She'll probably hear me talking about her. But I will spell her name for you. If you look her up on Instagram, it's she calls herself Sylvia K. But her surname is KAMODYOVA.
Brilliant. Yeah, they're lovely, aren't they?
Yeah, I really love these platters and trays that she does, and that the bold colour is just.
Oh, thank you.
So these are glazes. It used to be done with slips, but now this is a tin glaze over terracotta, and this is coloured glazes. And just the bold colours are just really great. And sort of, and again, it's that free movement. That's, you know, it's sort of so fresh, isn't it?
I like that she's not covered the whole platter as well. She's left some of the original clay showing through as well.
That's really good, isn't it? And those sort of shadows of the, you know, the edges of the clay. I think that just works so nicely. If it was all over, it just wouldn't be quite the same, would it? Wouldn't be quite interesting. Yeah. So
there's something almost like a watercolor edge to them, isn't there?
Yeah. And the sort of overlapping of the pores. So she uses a jug and pours the glaze. And that overlapping gives you this sort of almost, yes, like you say, the watercolory sort of edge to it. Yeah. So these were just some ones that I picked up from different places. I don't know much about this person, who is called Jennifer Hall.
Oh, I follow her on Instagram.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because of the slip decorating. So I'm interested in. That's nice, isn't it? I like her handles.
Yeah, the handles are fun, aren't they? And the flatness of it intrigued me. It's almost like a sort of puddle.
Yeah.
So yeah, and that's it just from a different angle.
Cool.
But it's a bit busy for me, that one.
Yeah, it's expressive is what I like about it, but I won't want it myself. But I like the freedom of expression and the way she's drizzled and
yeah, you can see the movement, can't you? You can just imagine the slip trailer going like that, just sort of clicking away.
Yeah, it's very freely.
Yeah, yeah, and again those edges as well. I think you're getting to see the edge of the slip where it meets the clay. I think that's quite interesting.
Yeah.
But I liked this. This is from the Edo period in Japan, so 1600.
Crumbs. Looks contemporary.
It looks modern.
Sorry? No, so it's really old. So that's not how much it is. That's from that's the so it's historical, but it doesn't look look that, does it? It's got a freshness. You would, I don't know, I can't imagine this from being like 1600s in the UK. This doesn't.
No, it looks really contemporary modern, doesn't it?
Yeah, just the sort of little bits of design and the way the glaze is sort of splashed on. So, and this sort of greeny tone here is called Oribe glaze, which is still used a lot in Japan. It's very sort of traditional. So this is using that same Oribe glaze and that idea of kind of part pattern, part glaze. This is Ken Matsuzaki, who's like a contemporary Japanese maker, but using some of these traditional designs. So I quite like this because of the handle going all the way across, like a basket. But this one takes us back to that idea of the tray as a plinth, like connecting this pot with this base. These two suddenly have a relationship. And there seems to be red there and red here, so I think that brings the two together. There's a sort of freshness about this as well, the way that's been sort of cut from a slab almost. And these are very fresh, these ones. This is how do you say his name, Maria? You would have come across Daniel Williams. I don't know how you say his name.
Daniel.
Like Daniel.
Daniel.
Just Welsh.
Is it Daniel or Dan?
It's Daniel, but it's just spelt in Welsh.
Spelt, yeah, okay. Well, yeah.
That's just thrown, doesn't it? That's like I
love the sort of cragginess of his work.
Yeah.
And these are just the freshness of them is, they're just there's very little kind of sign of the hand almost. It's just kind of almost just cut from the clay out of the bag almost, and just thrown on the ground. It's just got a like a very little evidence of being actually handled, which I quite like.
Is he the chap that puts the stones and things in it?
Yeah. So he does throw with the coarse clay that he's added grog and stones to, which he's possibly done with this here. It's probably the same clay.
I think he did a weekend workshop at Forest Road, didn't he, not so long back? I would have quite liked to have done that. I think he was doing some stuff with them there, wasn't he?
Yeah, this is one of his pieces that's got that real volcanic kind of look to it. And this says it's described as a bowl, but I think it's large enough. I think you could see that as a tray, but I'm thinking this is where it stands alone. It doesn't have, you wouldn't put anything in it. It just lives in it, and it's not there to contain anything. It's just there to be itself, which I think is quite
something quite organic-y and about it. I like it.
So much texture and
very yummy. Yeah, there's something almost edible, like melted ice cream about it.
Yeah, it's the glazes are very clever as well. The way he's put a glaze over another, and you can see through some. Yeah, there's something about. Look at that pink. If you look down on the bottom right, there's this beautiful pinkness to it as well.
Bottom left.
That's it. Yeah, bottom. Yeah.
Yeah, that's almost like the raw clay showing through, and then this glaze is dripping. But it's also bold, isn't it? Because it's hard to imagine putting a work out with a big crack like that in it, but that's part of it. So it's kind of the boldness of that, I think, is quite interesting.
I quite like the allowance that's, you've brought it to the table, which is lovely, pardon the pun, but it's the fact that he's done all the things that is the purists of ceramics would go, ooh, he's just cut from the slab, ooh, he's allowed a crack in it. And I actually like the fact that there's validation in the fact that he's done that. He's just gone, sod it, fuck it, I'm just going to try this and see what happens. I'm sure there's a lot more thought process and a lot more justification and realization in there.
I think there's definitely a story there, Jenny.
Yeah,
as well.
I definitely think that. I just love it. I just
how he's
really
got to
like
this, yeah.
He's allowed it to be.
Is it wood fired or electric fired? Because I can't imagine the toll on its kiln elements with all those exploding stones that have come out.
I would have thought it was reduction fired, so either wood fired or gas, I would imagine. From the glazes that he uses. I bought one of his tall bottles, and looking at it, I'd say it's almost definitely reduction fired. But yeah, there's this whole kind of group of potters that make work that's so craggy and rough and torn and drippy and I love it and just find it really not something I can try, but I've never succeeded at making anything that has any of that, and I think it's something that you have to try, not try, you have to.
I think you really have to let go.
It is
don't you?
And go, yeah, you're absolutely right, Maria. And it's something you have to get a confidence with it, a confidence with the material, but confidence with the end result, and go, that's how it is.
Like with Ruth Ann Tudball.
Yeah.
Let go.
Still scarred.
Yeah. Ruth Ann, Jenny, do you know what happened with Ruth Ann Tudball?
Sorry, Jenny.
Ruth Ann Tudball went to teach for was it just a day at Forest Row and
3 days, 3 days.
Somebody didn't come back for one of the days, did they? One lady didn't.
89 hours.
I was there the day after. And everyone was practically in tears. I had to do a sort of counselling session because of the trauma. Everyone was traumatized.
What happened?
It was quite funny because she's sort of giving up with me a bit, because it was you had to didn't really understand what she was trying to get us to do at first, to be honest. But she I think she broke one of her wrists, so she's devised a way of throwing with more of her left hand, and it's really rough and expressive, and she throws a whole teapot in one go, using this special method, and it's so the surface is so like craggy and scraped and
she uses very soft clay as well, very, very wet clay, so you can see the fluidity, the movement in her pieces. But the thing is that with us, if anyone asked a question, and I knew not to ask a question because I'd already been to her studio as part of the 3-month course,
kind of a
And
teacher.
so I knew to keep my mouth shut, let's put it that way. And so someone asked her a question, she said, well, that's a stupid question. Like, I've already answered that.
I mean, what kind of teacher doesn't encourage people to ask questions?
Okay.
You know, it's just appalling. I mean, I don't think she's intentionally mean, but I think she probably
No. She's very but she she was amazing what she taught us, because even now if I throw, I can hear it in my head going, what was it? Don't forget the rim, or thingy the rim. What was the words? Something about the rim. That's it, compress the rim. And always, whenever you're throwing, you need to know what you want your rim to look like before you finished. So you need to know because I often just throw and then think, oh, I'll do a rim like this. Or she made us throw like 40 different rims and cut them off and put them down, just the rims. So you just kept throwing. So we learned a lot. She was an amazing teacher, but she was really scary. My stomach had
what she's doing is fantastic in terms of what she's taught you, but the way she went about it, I couldn't believe it. It was like the entire class was stunned. Like,
even John, who doesn't look like he can be stunned by very much.
No,
this big guy.
Everyone was just sort of like looked like they'd been hit by a bus. They were just sort of sitting there like. And one of the women was sort of almost in tears and said that she'd had to be persuaded to come back.
Wow.
And her husband said, look, it's not, Ruth Ann's not going to be there. It'll be Elaine. You like her. She'll be,
She'll be just in your nightmares. That's where she's going to live in future.
What's her name? Ruth Ann what?
Tudball.
She reminded me of my Australian friend, Helen. So I sort of found it slightly humorous, but knew not to ask a question because, like Maria, you said,
that's terrible. That's terrible.
She's got a massive show. She's in a show at the moment up in Holborn, isn't she? At the is it not CPA? Is it CPA, Elaine?
No, but I see it coming up a lot on.
Yeah, she's got a show. Yeah, she's definitely got an exhibition.
I'll share a screen with her at her work in a minute, but I'll just carry on with this one.
Oh wow, this one's funny.
I like the colours.
This is Walter Keeler. This is another potter you should know about. So Walter Keeler, sometimes referred to as Wally Keeler, he a lot of his work is extruded. So these lovely soft handles are probably extruded, but he makes these jugs, which you might have seen. I haven't got them here, but they're the entire. I'll share the video of him working, but the entire jug is extruded from this huge thing. So Claire will be able to do something like that. But I like the handles on this. I like the kind of almost like oversized kind of rabbit ear handles and the softness. And this is also his. The extruded pieces are really kind of, they've grown into trees on here. And I think this is really, it's got a real sort of humor to it almost. And
is that empty inside? Sorry, that's not a solid piece, a donut. That must be.
Yeah, it's extruded from one of those extruder machines. It's like a tube.
Oh, okay, got it.
Yeah. So it's like and he's sort of stuck them all together.
Yeah. Are you thinking about this bit, Maria? Yeah. So yeah, that this bit might have been thrown actually, the base.
I thought you meant the tree parts.
Yeah,
no, that
the tree parts are extruded, but I think the base is possibly thrown. So just throw as well.
Yeah.
But I like the fact that this is sort of sold as a tray almost, but it kind of, or a platter, but it, again, it's become center stage in its own right. It's no longer kind of the bit part. It's no longer the background that brings other things together. It's kind of its own master.
That is bonkers. That is just brilliant. That
it is brilliant. I love it, and I'm quite inspired by that. The way that the trees are growing up from here.
It's funny, the contrast of the angular with the organic as well, isn't it? Because you've got the softness of the tray, and then you've got the angular. It's a bit of contrast, isn't it?
Oh, the colour of it as well. I think it's fascinating. It's one of those pieces you could just look at over and over and over and still.
Yeah, you should check out Walter Keeler's work, because it's really he does some very interesting things with extruded pieces, but he combines hand building and extruding and slabs and thrown work, and all in one piece. It's the kind of challenge I might give Claire to do later on. But I'm going to finish up now by just talking about me. Guess who made?
Me, I love it.
Guess who made?
I love that glaze.
So this is going back to 2012. So 9 years ago. This is when I graduated. This is the kind of work I was making.
Lovely.
So, like we were talking about earlier on, where you have a piece that brings small pieces together. It's like these individual little eggy pots. They're the size of a pigeon egg or something. They're very small, and these ceramic pins or nails, on their own, it's like I when I made them, I knew I really loved these pins. And I loved that this piece is a bit of porcelain that's been wound around and then fired, so it kind of creates this almost like a little bit of binding. I really liked these pieces, but they needed a home. They needed to be part of a collection. So I created a base for them to sit on, and then it became a thing. So it was sold as a kind of sculptural piece, I guess. I would get a lot of questions about this. What is it for? A lot of the time, show it. But also I was showing at places like Art in Clay and Earth and Fire, where people tend to sell more practical work. So I'm selling stuff like this, or trying to, and people were like quite bemused, I think. But some people would get it. Some people would look at it and go, "Oh, this is so amazing! I've got to have that." And so it was niche, I have to say.
Elaine, with your vessels, did you start doing your vessels with the wood, the added pieces, when you're doing your masters, or did that come later? Did you just keep experimenting?
Yeah, they came much later. When I was doing my masters, my finished work was pieces like this, but also the framed pieces with the spoons and media in there. And what I found difficult was to bring the pots and the wall pieces together to be part of a kind of cohesive collection. So I really wanted to bring that mixed media element to the pots, and it took years, and it was probably 2016 when I started.
Quite recently then.
Yeah, it was when I did that project with a willow weaver, and Maria Sullivan, and started to work with willow, and her baskets were a real influence on me. The idea of a handle across the top of a basket was an influence on me, in creating the idea of something going across the top rather than sort of over, like a handle might be kind of quite high up or just on either side. I have two handles on a basket, but she had these handles that went just across the top, and that was an influence on my work. And that's when I started to bring willow into the pots, and then I started to embellish them and add bits to it, and that's when that all developed. So that's more recent, but it, in a way, it has a lineage back to this. Although this is all ceramic, it's a collection of pieces, and it kind of was trying to marry the pots with the pins, if you like. So they, even without the pins, I would make a base for these little pots to sit on. And it's a bit like, Maria, what you were doing with your pots on the tray. It gives them somewhere to live. It gives them a home almost, and brings them together. And people would then not just buy one little pot, they would buy a collection of them. And it gives them a bit of drama as well. So this bit here, this is thrown. So in the previous one, this is a hand-built base, just a flat pad with some texture on it. This is a thrown pot that I've then cut from the wheel. So so in fact the back edge is the bottom of the pot, and the front edge you can see has got that kind of narrowness that you might have from the rim of a pot. So it was cut from the base and cut at the side, and then trying not to put any fingerprints on it, because you do it when it's very loose, and then just kind of putting it down on a wooden bat just to let it dry, so you've still got that sort of freshness, that sense of movement. Have we still got you, Maria, or have you... I think we've lost Maria. That's frustrating. Oh, well, maybe she'll watch the end of the video. Don't know what's happened to her. Anyway, we've still got Jenny and Claire. Oh, Maria's back. Are you back, Maria? Hello. Hello.
Sorry.
What happened?
I sent Mike to the groomer with Marley, and I didn't know you had to say what you want, how you wanted the haircut done for a dog, so I didn't tell Mike anything, so they had to ring me to confirm. Sorry about that.
That's all right. So yeah. So did you miss the bit where I was saying that this is thrown, this base here?
No. Yeah. I missed that.
Yeah. So so this is the back edge is the base of a pot, and the front edge is the rim. So I cut it off the base and then cut the sides, and very, very quickly without getting fingerprints on it, then just laid it out on a wooden bat to dry. So it's got that kind of movement and the throwing lines.
Oh, I like that.
So yeah, I like the sense of movement that it gives, as well as the containment, the kind of giving it a home, giving the pieces somewhere to sit.
Oh, I like that.
Okay. And then I got more extravagant with my thrown pieces.
You right?
Hello. Who's that?
Sorry, that's number one's back. So yeah.
Oh, hello, number one. So you can really see that this is a thrown piece. So I let this pot dry a bit more on the wheel, and then cut it off, and left that curve.
I love the really beautiful. I like the way the little pots are kind of nestled in there.
Yeah, it's kind of it's quite cute. It's maybe a bit too cute, but they kind of, yeah, they sort of, it's like a shelter, isn't it? Like a little shelter for them to sit.
They are so, you understand how tiny they are now when you see it inside something like that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, this is smaller than a hen's egg, this one here, and this is more like a robin's egg or something. They're very small. Yeah. This was when I was still doing reduction firing, so I could get these gorgeous glazes. So this is a celadon glaze with the tenmoku glaze on the inside, and where the two meet, you get this gorgeous kind of greens and browns. Yeah, and this one here is another kind of extension of that, but cut the base on a slant, on a sort of spiral.
Oh yes, yeah.
So that it gives the impression that the top is spiraling when it's actually the base. So yeah, so that one, the pot isn't sitting on the base anymore. It's kind of just protected by it.
I love all the metaphors that you've just shown us. You know, each one's got a very topical metaphors as well. I really like that.
Thank you. Yeah,
the shelter, the family, the relationships. What else have you said? Somewhere to live.
Yeah.
The marriages, you know, all those metaphors that sort of talk of lockdown as we've just been through, and that family grouping together. I think that's a really lovely way to sort of, you know, the theme that you've created this week has been very mindful, very emotional. I like that.
It's interesting, isn't it? And we get quite it's not anthropomorphic.
That's it. I was just thinking the word is it it is
when you sort of bring animal qualities to it, but maybe it's still the same with humans. We are animals, but but yeah, it's kind of infusing them with emotions. Like, so, like, I mean, we always do think about that with, I think that's the last pot. We do think about those things, or use
Yeah, anthropomorphic. Yeah.
With pots, we do that a lot, because when we're talking about the pot, we talk about clay body, we talk about the neck and shoulders of a bottle, the
feet, yeah,
thing, you know, and bellying out, and you know, it's all of that, you know, and that whole idea of a vessel is kind of very bound up with the idea of the body, and particularly related to women. And I think it's really interesting the way that we do connect pots to people that way.
Definitely. And yeah,
you know, and Maria's done this a lot with her groupings of pieces that become families, and they do get, you know, when you, particularly with bottles, you get this sense of them kind of having a body like form. And
I think that also happens in the sale point as well, is when you're displaying work like this, it's hard to break up a family. So you can see why people sell in groups, and that's why they're more expensive, is because if you take one and you take it away from its family, it doesn't have the same connotations and relationships with all your other pots, because you've taken it from one family to another family that don't necessarily mix and match. But when you keep them all together, there's something quite powerful about that. When you see them in a gallery or something, you see all these pots and you go, "Oh, I'd love, I just want one because I can't afford the rest." But you can sort of see there's a massive big piece of emotional work in there as well.
Yeah, it really is interesting how some works can really stand alone, like that big dish by Daniel Williams that is a statement piece. It completely lives on its own. It has its own kind of presence, whereas some other things are like, I'm waiting for the food, or already have a collection of pots in them, and so, you know, you can't have them on their own, and that's really interesting, the way that we kind of get drawn to and make assumptions about pieces. I think it's a very interesting thing, and that dynamic of multiples. Yeah, it's fascinating.
It's a bit like planting. When you plant, when you put new plants into a border, they always say do in 3s and 5s, don't they? But sometimes I work on the gardening of chuck it in and see what happens, and hope it works. So it's interesting, isn't it? There's all sorts of lines of thought, and it all depends on personal taste. It all comes down to sometimes, or you know, like looking around Maria's house, there is a color theme, and it's lovely, this sort of very soft, and you can see it in her work now as well. There's a sort of this presence in them. The same with your work, Elaine. There's very much this sort of consistent thing, and I like that, the fact that you then can take something from another collection and put it into yours and know that you can group it because you've chosen something because you like the color of it or the shape of it. And I think that's very interesting, how we self-select as well. It's a bit like friends. Work colleagues and tutor groups.
Yeah, it's so interesting how we do respond emotionally, don't we, to these things? You know, it's sometimes, you know, you don't even know why. You can't necessarily articulate what it is that makes you drawn to a particular thing. But yeah, I think Maria's got a very interesting topic that she's been exploring, that sense of collections, because it's so interesting how we want things to be collected. We want things to be housed, you know, and sort of, and Jenny, you're right, the language is of the home and the families and so on, but we want things to have a sense of containment, like Claire said, and that's just really interesting. Where
I've been reading this book, Elaine. It's called The Cultures of Collecting.
Oh,
you can see it. I might drop it off to you afterwards.
Oh, that sounds really
I've read it.
Yeah,
and it just all goes about why do certain people like collecting things? Why did the Victorians start their private collections? What was it about having 100 of the same thing? It's really fascinating.
Oh.
It's got lots of very long words in it, though.
Well, it must be good then.
So it must be really intellectual. But it really is fascinating, just about all these different, some art. It's got different essays. Like it's not normally the kind of thing I read, but someone recommended it. So yeah, I'll let you know how that goes.
Yeah, sounds really interesting. I don't know. I mean, I was gonna do a demo, but we've kind of just talked.
Next time.
But also, like, I wasn't really sure what I was going to do. I don't really make trays, but I was kind of just really fascinated by how they can be different things in different contexts, and that idea of them already containing something, about to contain something, or just existing on their own. And I think it's quite interesting. And
I love that waiting for food comment as well. That was quite interesting, just with lots of the vessels, the plates and things. And not over decorating those, because you don't want it to compete with the food on on the same plate. It's really interesting.
It is interesting. I do feel like when I look at Sylvia's pieces, they are waiting for food. They're just inviting you to use them. And I think that's something to really do if you're making utilitarian work. You really want it to make you want to use it. You don't want to feel like, oh no, I couldn't, it's too delicate.
Yeah.
Or oh my god, it's too busy. I could, it's got to look like it is kind of.
You don't want it for best anymore. People don't have things for best, do they?
No, it's true. Very true.
Glasses
very true.
And plates, and people just want to enjoy and use things. Live in the now rather than waiting to live in the future for something.
That's true. Well, okay, well I'm going to call it a day there, but
thank you very, very much. It's food for thought.
Food for thought, indeed.
I'm going to leave you with one sentence. Okay, so any given object can have two functions. It can be utilized or it can be possessed. I leave you with that. Mandy.
We'll have an essay on that from you, Mandy, at the end of next week. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
I'll see you all next week. Lovely.
See you next week. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.